All right, let's work on a couple more things here in the back of the vehicle, but then I think I'd like to move up to the top to work on that gun turret. I don't want to try and fill up too much in the front and the back yet. I want to get kind of all the pieces in and then begin thinking about how to connect up and fill in the bottom here. So let's go and work on the back, just one or two more pieces. Let me change the image here. Let's go and grab this one here. That looks pretty good. So I like these things. This is interesting. These pieces with the holes in them. There's quite a bit more that we're going to do a little bit later, but let me work on these for now. Let's go to the side view and let's take a look and see if we can see them in here. So I think this is this part. This is the larger circle, and maybe this here is the smaller circle. So let's see what we can do with this. I think instead of beginning with a cube or even a polygon plane, I think we should begin with cylinders. Put one in here and maybe duplicate it and put it in here. Then add a solidify modifier to get the thickness, and then extrude out of the cylinders to get the rest of the piece here, this piece back in here. Well, let's see if it'll work. Let's see. All right, so let's go to Shift A and create a cylinder. I will change the vertices to 16. Let's try that. And then I'll just, and I'll also put nothing as the cap fill because we're going to want that open here for those circles. Now I'll hit S and scale down. Let's turn in the y-axis, RY90. And then let's hit the G key and move it over here to put it in place. I'll scale it down just a bit. I think something like this. Maybe I'll even hit R and rotate it so it kind of fits against the side there, or at least what I'm perceiving to be the side. It's kind of hard with these pixelated images. So, okay, so we've got that in. Let's go ahead and go with that. What I'll do is go to the back view with Control 1, and let's scale it down in the x-axis with S and X. And let's move it over. I think this is it over here. So I'm going to move it over here. And let's scale it back out with S and X just a little bit like this. So it's about like that, about that width there. Okay, so we tumble around, go back to that side view, and then I'll press Shift D and move it to duplicate it, and I'll put it right here, scale that down, and maybe put that right about there. Okay, so we have these two pieces. Let's tumble around and see how we're doing. Yep, so there they are. Let's add a solidify modifier to each of these. So I'll go to the modifiers panel, add modifier, and solidify. And it looks like we've got a problem with our scale. Let's press Control A and apply the scale. There we go. So that looks a little better. I'll choose even thickness, and I'll click in the thickness field and drag. I'll hold the Shift key down to move a little bit slower. And I'll maybe bring it down to about like that. Okay, now let's grab this one here. Same thing. Add modifier, solidify. Same problem. Let's press Control A and apply the scale. There we go. Even thickness, and let's move that thickness in just a bit like, let's do about like that. So now we have that. I think what I'm going to do is turn this. I'll just select it and hit the R key and kind of turn it so it matches up with the faces of the other one right here. And then let's apply the solidify modifier because we're going to need to join these two together. And when we join them together, if we still have the solidify modifier on it, it'll apply the thickness of the last one we choose. So we're going to need to apply these first. So I'll hit apply here. And let's click apply here. All right, so now let's choose these two, press Control J to join them to make them all one object. And then let's tab into edit mode and I'll hit the 3 key. And now let's select this face, and this face, and this one, and this one. Now we want to bridge these edge loops. We want to bridge these faces together to connect them up, like here. right? So to do that, we actually, even though we've chosen faces, we actually need to go into the Edges menu. The Edge menu is right up here, and you can see Bridge Edge Loops here. We've also got the Faces menu and the Vertex menu. Now we can also get to these by pressing Control E for the edges. We can press Control V for the Vertex menu and Control F for the Faces menu. But let's press Control E and go to Bridge Edge Loops. And there we go. That looks pretty good. I think what I'd like to do is maybe grab this one edge right here, and let's drag this out, maybe move it down some like this. So it has this kind of a curve there, something like that. Okay. Now we need to somehow connect these up back here. I think what I'll do is maybe extrude the top one back and then bridge edge loops from the bottom one. Let's see how that works. I'll go back to the wireframe view and let's press the 3 key to go to face select, and maybe I'll choose these 3 here. Let's try this. I'll hit the E key and then I'll click, and then I'll just drag straight in the Y axis here. Let's now think about how we're going to connect these up. So what we're going to do is we're going to bridge edge loops up here. So I'm going to need some edges to connect up. So actually what I'll do is this. Let's move this out and let's press S and Y and scale in the Y axis, and that'll just flatten that up. Let's take this face here and let's just move it up like this so it's kind of flat on the top. We'll take these faces here and we'll just bring them all the way back to about right here. Okay. So if we go back to solid view, this is what we have. Let's hide the vehicle main away for the time being. There we go. And this NURBS path, what is that? Oh, that's that handle. Let's just grab that and move it up into the vehicle main as well. Okay, so now we have this. What we need to do is create a couple of edges so we can bridge these up. So we can once again select faces on either side of the gap and bridge those edge loops. So I'm going to press Control R and I'm going to scroll the mouse wheel. And I think all we need is these 2 edges here. So if I put them about like this, well, maybe we need 3. Let me do 3. I'm going to scroll. Oh, I can't do that. Let me hit Escape and let me just press Control Z and then I'll press Control R and let's do that again. So I think I'll get 3 in here. That's going to be good. Let's do that. So the reason why I did 3, let's go back to wireframe with the Z key. The reason why I did 3 is because I wanted 1, 2, 3 faces to line up like that. Okay, so now we have those 3 faces, and we actually need these faces to connect as well. All right, now remember that T pattern, that inside face that we talked about with the crossbars? Well, we have one here that's going to happen too, right there. And I could go ahead and delete that first before I bridge edge loops, but I just want to show you this. Let's go ahead and bridge this and see what happens. I'll press Control E and let's choose Bridge Edge Loops. And there we go. Okay, so let's deselect everything and take a look. You can see that one face inside there. And that's, once again, what we do not want. So in creating these kinds of objects where you're joining objects together and then bridging edge loops and things like that, you can sometimes get these interfaces. So you really need to be careful with this. I'm going to hit X and delete faces, and that cleans that up. All right. Now if we go back to the side view, we can go ahead and begin maybe moving this back, or maybe hitting the R key and kind of rotating it like that, and then hit G and move it back. There we go, something like that. And I think that looks pretty good. I think that's kind of what we want there. Maybe let me grab this edge and pull it out just a bit, like this. Yeah, so I think we're going to want something like that. All right. Now the problem is we've got these blocky polygons there. What we can do now is go ahead and smooth it. Let's come up here to Object and Shade Smooth. And of course, that looks absolutely awful. Let's go over here to the Object Data panel, click Auto Smooth, and that looks pretty good there. All right. So once again, it's a blocky version of the piece, but I think that's going to be okay. We're going to see it pretty small in the scene, and it's going to be pretty far away. We've got a bit of a problem in that we've got this thing is much narrower than this, and I'm not exactly sure how that happened. Oh, I bet when I scaled it, I didn't turn off the x-axis when I scaled it down to put it in place, right? I should have pressed S and then Shift X to turn off the x-axis when I was scaling. So what do? Well, we can do a couple things, I guess. Let's hit the 3 key and go back to our side view and wireframe, and we could maybe just hit the C key now and border select all of these things. I'm just going to click and drag in here. And we went ahead and extruded these. I'm going to select all of these on the top and inside and all the way around here like this. So now if we have all of those selected, can we just scale that back out to the width of the other one? Let's give it a try. I will press S and X, scale this out some, and let's try it like this. Let's see how that works. Yeah, there we go. That looks quite a bit better. Okay, so let's bring everything back. There we go. And let's put this in place over on the other side. So I'll press Control 1, Z and wireframe. Let's press Shift D and X to duplicate it and move it in the x-axis. It looks like it's this right here, right? There we go. And lastly, we could just put this block in. There's kind of a block there that these are up against. We could go ahead and just put that in, I think. I'll press Shift A and let's create a cube. Let's scale it down and hit S and Z and scale that. And then let's put this in place. I'll go to the side view and wireframe. Let's just hit G and move it up to here, kind of up against this. And then let's go to the back view with Control 1. It looks to me like it maybe should be scaled out to here. And also let's scale it in the Z, S and Z. Get it about like this. And then do we also see it from the side? Let's see. Maybe we could select this face back here and pull it back to here maybe? It's hard to tell. Let's try it. Okay, so we have that piece in there. All right. I think that is, at least for now, pretty good for the back. We're going to have to do more for both the front and the back. But as I said, I'm just trying to block in general pieces to get a sense of the scale and proportion. And then we're going to have to figure out, once we get everything in, how many connecting pieces we're going to need and how much we're going to need to fill in around the fenders and underneath.